friends, my name's Will and welcome to Inspired By. This is a big one. Let's jump straight into it. The easiest way to start writing a song like this is to first pick your key. Polyphia write a lot of their songs in a minor key, so I've gone with the scale of D minor. Start with just 2 MIDI tracks when you begin your project and utilize just a basic instrument. I've chosen the default nylon guitar preset inside Tension. One of these tracks is going to be focused around chords and the other track is going to be focused on the lead guitar sound, so name them accordingly. Now don't panic yet if you're thinking, but Will, my music theory sucks. Don't worry friends, so does mine. There's a few methods we can use to start writing our chords and melody. Now of course we can just go by ear, but with a track like this we might be here for a while. So I would suggest devices like Captain Chords or Scalar 2. I utilize Scalar 2 to find my chord progression. Don't forget that you can also create inversions of these chords to create new voicings and keep your track sounding fresh. Now, once you have your chords, you actually have a brilliant roadmap for where your lead melody is going to start and finish. If we look at this chord, we can see that we can start our note here at the bottom and then move an arpeggiated pattern up to the top and back down again. Now, to mimic Tim Henson of Polyphia's sound, you'll want to switch between certain guitar tones, which we'll soon come to. But you also want a variation on rhythmic and performative techniques. Things like playing double time, adding triplets, utilizing slip notes, and pitch bends. Alternatively, if you use a stem separator like the Lao AI, you can also pull the lead guitar from Polyphia tracks and you can get an assortment of playing styles. From here, you can chop up that audio to create a brand new performance and slowly pitch it to match the key of your song. From here, you can consolidate that audio, right-click it and select Convert Harmony to New MIDI Track. This is going to create a MIDI version of that audio performance. It's not always perfect, but it will get you closer to the sound that you want. Now, once you have these 2 tracks that seem to be more in keeping with the Polyphia world, you can start to expand these into different groups, creating different tones of guitars. Studying Tim Henson's videos, you can see that he uses the hybrid picking technique quite often, which is to hold the plectrum between your thumb and index finger and use the available fingers to pick the rest of the strings. To my knowledge, we can't really achieve that on one track, hence my assortment of tracks in different guitar styles. For the top track, I'm still using the nylon guitar preset that I was using at the beginning of the project, but as we dive into the piano roll clips, we can see that I'm starting to delete some of the notes. This is because I have a duplicate track for my chords, which is sitting underneath. This new chord track is just the Dream Come True preset inside Ample Sound. You've seen me use Ample guitars tons on the channel, but I think this is the most I've ever used them in a project. To go back up to the top of the project, you can see that I've doubled this nylon guitar that we just saw, and I've used the Ample Guitar L to just create this double track sound, which also utilizes some slide notes at the start. I've done the same with the chords underneath, resampling those chords to audio and then using Lifeline Expanse to create a really dirty, distorted tone. As we look at my main MIDI guitar, this is what it looks like. There's a few repeating patterns, but for the most part, it's a completely unique melody all the way through. You can see at the bottom here, the reason that I use Ample guitar. And that's because with these notes in the piano roll that are so many octaves below my melody, I can switch between standard, palm muted, and harmonic notes. Now, of course, with all that chopping and changing, these plugins are going to be quite CPU heavy. So I like to freeze and flatten that particular track. And as we saw before, add distortion and other effects to create a really unique sound to stack on top of my guitar. As we can see here, it's also a great way to create those glitch effects that we hear in a lot of Polyphia's tracks. Now, Now we've got the guitars down, but before the bass and drums, it seems like the perfect opportunity to tell you about DistroKid, because if you're working on a track like this and putting in all this effort, you probably want to get it out to the world. You already know about the helpful tools like Hyperfollow, promo cards, Visi. You know that Mixer exists if you need help mastering your track, but it's always worth coming over to the sidebar just to see if any new features have been added. And I just noticed that it looks like DistroKid has acquired Bandzoogle. It's a one-stop shop to create a stunning website and portfolio of your music, and of course a great place to host your merch as well as announce your upcoming tours. If you want to get 7% off your first year using DistroKid and of course get access to all of these great things, then just use the link in the description below or hit the QR code in the bottom right of the screen. Let's get back to this Polyphia tutorial. Now of course, with all of those luscious guitar tones, you're probably going to want a nice bass tone, so I've also gone with the Ample Sound Collection, the Metal Raise Bass. Now again, if you're still worried about music theory, the bass shouldn't be too much of a problem. I've just used the lowest notes of the chords that we saw earlier and kind of intersperse those in amongst the playing to make sure there's a solid sub frequency in the track. And speaking of sub frequencies, later in the track, just to give it a little bit of a boost, I've got the sub sine bass with a little bit of EQ and the utility just to put it in mono, just to beef up the bass a little bit. At this point, you probably have a pretty good foundation for that Polyphia sound. But I think you still probably want a fuller sound, so I would suggest adding some big brass stabs. I got this stab from Splice, and I just pitch it one semitone each time it performs. It just plays in the intro, and the only thing that I've done right here at the end is just reverse that sample. And that plays alongside a reverse Lex trap crash as well, an orchestral crash. To give it more of a haunting sound, you can pretty much choose any metallophone, so something like a kalimba like I have here, or a glockenspiel. I've pitched mine all the way up and drenched it in reverb. And of course, as you heard at the end there, you probably want some drums. Polyphia use a mix of electronic trap drums and a very tight kit sound. I've gone for Superior Drummer. I've set it across 2 tracks because I want to use some tight hi-hats from a different pack, hence are EQ'd and put on track 2 here. And then all the fundamental kick sounds, the kick, the snare, the toms, are on this top track. If you're making use of samples with the drums, think about a standard metal drum kit setup. Of course, toms, kick, snare, and hats are standard sounds on all drum kits, but also think about China cymbals, stackers, and splashes. I'm using the Death and Darkness pack of Superior Drummer. All of the reverb turned off, and I'm also making sure that I cut off the envelope and offset settings of my snare and toms. It's going to make them very dry and not have as long a release as they did originally. Now, of course, if you're a drummer like me and you have access to an electronic kit, you can just connect that kit to Ableton. If you want to see content like that in the future, set up videos, tutorials, let me know. But if not, you want to make it sound like there's a human playing this kit. So make sure that there's lots of ghost notes on the snare before your main accent hit. You can get creative with your fills as well. They don't always have to be across the toms. Where possible, stray away from a simple 4/4 groove. And as you heard at the end there, try and accent your playing along with the guitar. So there we have it, guys, something a little bit different on today's episode. If you enjoyed it and you want to get a little bit more from this project, remember you can download the entire Frozen project if you use Ableton, or the STEM session if you don't, over at the Patreon, as well as book one-to-one sessions with me and grab a whole host of other exclusive goodies. Thank you so much for swinging by today, guys. If this type of video was helpful, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment as to what you want to see in future videos next time. For now, I'll see you next time. I messed up my outro. Bye.